Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Energy Minister seeks OUR intervention in electricity bill complaints. Uncertainty over resumption of classes for schools devastated by Hurricane Beryl. And later in sports, Kishane Thompson set for mega clash in Sunday's Cilicia Diamond League meet. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shane Masters and here are the details. Energy Minister Darrell Vaz is expected to formally write to the leadership of the Office of Utilities Regulations, OUR, insisting on an investigation into multiple complaints about increased light bills. It follows the passage of Hurricane Beryl last month and power provider JPS issuing some customers with estimated bills. Disturbed. That's how Energy Minister Darrell Vaz says he is, following numerous complaints from customers of the Jamaica Public Service Company about an unusual and major spike in electricity bills sent to them by the company during the current billing cycle. It has led to the minister now calling on the utility regulator, the OUR, to investigate the complaints. In a release Sunday night, the minister also demanded an explanation from JPS for the major spike in electricity bills of many of its customers during the current billing cycle.
Because this is not new. This has been a repeated complaint by a customer of JPS for many, many years. But now that there has been an interruption for an extended period in the power supply, people can actually judge and see exactly what is taking place with their bill. I am hoping that JPS can come with a good explanation to explain their way out of this. But as they say, out of adversity comes opportunity. And I can tell you, this is an opportunity to make sure that we do a proper investigation into the billing cycle of JPS, because there are glaring discrepancies in these bills.
He's adamant that the development is unacceptable. He's hoping the OUR immediately seeks to assist the government's efforts to ensure just and fair treatment of the Jamaican people.
I know of one situation where a community center in St. Elizabeth was completely destroyed. The billing cycle shows that they had power 2 days before Beryl was the start of the billing cycle, and they have not had power since. And they have a bill for 71,000 Jamaican dollars, which is absolutely impossible. So that one I can speak to without fear of contradiction. And I'm hoping that the new president of the JPS will deal with this matter and make sure that an explanation is given to the Jamaican people and the customers of JPS. And I will be overseeing and making sure that this matter is followed up to its completion.
In the meantime, when contacted this morning, the Director of Corporate Communications at JPS said a response to the minister's query would be provided later this afternoon. And the opposition says it will be focusing on the reduction of the price of electricity as one of its top priority if it forms the next government. Spokesman on energy Philip Paulwell says the charge of 40 cents per kilowatt, that's US cents per kilowatt hour of electricity, is too expensive for the average Jamaican.
It is wrong, and people like our people who we support.
He says the PNP government will democratize electricity in the country, which means making it accessible to everyone, this through the use of solar.
There's the sun every day, and the technology for using sunshine, solar, to generate electricity has improved dramatically in the last 8 years. But those who are in government don't understand a thing. They don't understand that today you can use solar energy to generate electricity cheaper than gas and diesel. And I want to ensure that as we win, we will start this process to transform Energy Jamaica.
He was speaking at the Central St. Mary Constituency Conference on Sunday night. That seat will be contested by Omar Newell, as Dr. Maria Sky will not be seeking re-election in the upcoming general elections. There's uncertainty about the resumption of classes at some schools for the new academic year. These schools are along the southern belt of the island. President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Leighton Johnson, gave the update on TVJ's Smile Jamaica this morning. More in this report.
Thousands of the nation's children could be out of the physical classroom at the start of the new academic year, following moderate to severe damage to several schools following the passage of Hurricane Beryl last month. The Category 5 hurricane devastated institutions mostly along the southern end of the island. But while work has begun to address those which are deemed most severe, uncertainty is looming. Leighton Johnson is president of the JTA.
Based on the severity of the damage in terms of how ready those schools will be for September morning, which is September 2nd, that there is a little uncertainty for that, because notwithstanding the fact that the buildings were damaged, there are some schools too that suffered extensive damage to their electrical installation. And that again, that in and of itself is posing another challenge.
He says based on preliminary assessments, there could be a delayed start to the new academic year by a week at the affected institutions. Mr. Johnson further noted that if there is to be any further delay than the 1 week, then the respective school administrators and the Education Ministry will have to intervene.
Because of the hurricane, this disruption, we perhaps might have to contemplate online classes in some regards. And we know the challenge of online school. I don't think parents and students at this time are really prepared for it. Two, those schools in some of the areas that were really devastated, there is no power, no electricity in some of those areas to this point.
Sedimentary geologist at the University of the West Indies, Professor Simon Mitchell, has expressed concern following Friday's 5.3 magnitude earthquake. He says there has been a shift in the migration along the fault line, which is linked to a series of earthquakes that devastated Haiti in 2010 and 2021.
What he's actually seen is a series of earthquakes stepping along this fault line. Now we've got some in Jamaica. They're not as gigantic as these two very big ones, but what we're seeing is that we're seeing this sort of, transfer of stress along the fault towards the west.
He says with the stress building up across a fault line, this could lead to a similar sized earthquake that rocked Port Royal in 1907.
We will have at some point a very big earthquake. There is no doubt about it, because it happened historically. So it is on the cards that one day we will have these. My concern at the moment is that we're seeing a series of smaller earthquakes which are sort of transferring stress along this system and potentially down towards the basically South Coast Fault.
And it's time for a break here on the Midday News, but stay with us, more stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. Law enforcement officials in Brownstown, St. Anne continue to face challenges maintaining order among vendors in the area. The vendors' disorderly conduct has prompted the police to seek more effective ways to fix the issue. Inspector Ricardo Beckford is the sub-officer at the Brownstown Police Station.
Normally, in prior years, what would happen is that we'd have a major operation, and then a few days pass, and then it go back to what it was. So what we do now is we have a more sustained approach that especially between Tuesday and Thursdays, when we have the wholesalers who should operate between 5 a.m. and 11 a.m. They, for the most part, would contribute to the congestion at the front of the market there. So all we do is we enforce strict compliance as relates to that also.
Inspector Beckford is assuring the public that the police are dedicated to resolving the issue and ensuring the area remains safe.
The market street, which is normally congested with persons who have stalls in the market, who tend to come out on on the street there with goods to sell. We try to ensure that they go into the market and use the stalls that they actually rented. So the market street is also clear to an extent. So businesses in the area that normally receive like deliveries during the course of the week, they can have access to the road without any hindrance.
A police constable assigned to the Claremont Police Station in St. Ann narrowly escaped death early this morning after being hit by a motor car. It's reported that about 2:15 a.m., two constables were conducting a spot check in front of the Claremont Police Station when they signaled a black Toyota Crown motor car and a grey Nissan AD wagon to stop. The Toyota Crown sped off, but the AD wagon sped in the path of a policeman in a threatening manner. The constable was hit on the foot and fell. He managed to fire one round at the car, which sped away. The policeman was assisted to hospital by his other colleague, where he's been treated for his injuries. And it's now time for the Business Minute. Key Insurance Company says it made a higher profit of $15.8 million in its second quarter ended June 2024. For April to June last year, the company made $9.38 million. This was linked to higher net insurance and investment returns, along with lower net expenses from reinsurance contracts. There were also higher insurance revenues of $760.4 million, a $56 million increase versus the $704.7 million made in the similar quarter last year. Further afield, more than half of all Fortune 500 companies now consider AI a risk factor. That's according to a Forbes report that looks at an Arise AI survey. It shows about 56% of the businesses flag the technology as a concern. That's up more than 400% from the previous year. The growing attention to AI as a potential risk coincides with the widespread recognition of AI's capabilities following the release of OpenAI's ChatGPT in late 2022. This breakthrough led to a significant surge in AI awareness, with 323 companies in the Fortune 500 mentioning AI in their annual reports, a 152% increase from the previous year. And that's it for the Business Minute. Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, CARICOM member countries Guyana and Suriname have joined a strong international appeal for restraint in the Venezuela crisis. The two CARICOM member countries joined the Dominican Republic and 17 other countries, as well as the European Union, in expressing concern about the political crisis in Venezuela since the much disputed July 28 presidential election. In a joint statement, the two countries said all social and political actors must exercise the utmost restraint in their public actions at this decisive juncture for Venezuela and the region. On the international scene, one man has died and 6 other people are missing after a yacht sank off the coast of Sicily in the early hours of Monday morning. According to Italian Fire and Rescue Service, the 183 feet yacht was flying a British flag, noting that Britons are among those missing. The 22 people on board included 10 crew and 12 passengers, some of whom were American and Canadian nationals. Emergency services rescued 15 people, including a 1-year-old child. It's understood that the yacht sank after encountering a heavy storm overnight that caused waterspouts to appear over the sea. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says now is probably the best, maybe the last opportunity to secure a ceasefire and hostage release deal in Gaza. Mr. Blinken made his comments during a meeting with Israeli President Isaac Herzog on Monday during his 9th trip to the region since war began in October. The U.S. has expressed an optimism about a deal since talks resumed in Doha last week, but Hamas says suggestions of progress are an illusion, with differences said to include whether Israeli troops will be required to withdraw fully from Gaza as Hamas insists. Mr. Blinken is expected to maintain pressure on Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu when they meet later on Monday. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Raquel Porto.
Thanks, Raquel. And we head to a quick break. When we come back, Jordan Ford will have your midday sports report.